Happy Sunday, everybody. Steve here. So when I was on active duty, flew C-17s. I am retired now, by the way. But when I was on active duty, I flew C-17s. I was assigned, my first flying assignment, I was assigned to Charleston, flying C-17s there in the 17th Airlift Squadron, which no longer exists. They closed it down. Anyway, everybody had, when you weren't flying, most people had jobs in the squadron, and there's different jobs required to keep a squadron running, training and all that. I was a scheduler. So scheduler, you build the flying schedule. You get the requirements down. They say, hey, you've got 3 locals this week and 4 missions or whatever, and you build them in this computer scheduling program we had. And then you had to load crews, and you were responsible to make sure that the crews that flew were current. They had all of the landings and takeoffs and all the things they had to get. They were completely current. All the training requirements to go fly this mission. They weren't needing any kind of training. So it was a lot of work, and it was a lot of, sometimes it was a house of cards and balancing things and everything else. But you also, we always used to kind of joke about this, but you had a little bit of power. So because some trips were better than others, and some trips, like the ones that went to Europe in the summertime, were highly prized, and then the ones that were maintenance trainers to Cannon Air Force Base, New Mexico, or whatever, were not. So as a scheduler, you had the power to put names where you were, and we used to joke about the list schedulers had. They called it we called it the list. So whenever somebody crossed you or gave you a hard time about something or whatever, you would put them on the list, and and you didn't want to be on the list because whatever bad deals came down, you made sure that person was in it, right? So anyway, you never want to upset this was 2 of my little rules of thumb is when I was on active duty. You never want to upset the commander's secretary, and you never want to upset schedulers. That's what that was a rule of thumb that I followed. But I remember one time there was probably the worst duty. Every now and then they would come down drug test, and they needed people to go over this duty to monitor urine tests, and that was like the worst duty you could get, I think. And we had one of those come down one time. They came out and said, urine test monitor for 3 days, whatever it was. And so I was there in the scheduling room, and a buddy of mine he and I were scheduling, and so he picks up the squadron intercom and says, attention to the squadron, we just had an add-on urine test monitor. Anybody available, these days that could help us out do it, stop by, let us know. And he hangs up, and he didn't think twice about it, and I just kind of stopped, and I said, hey man, who in their right mind is going to come in here like that? Who's going to come in here and go, yeah, okay, I'll do it? I mean, those particular duties. You had to reach out and go, sorry, dude, you got to do it. Now, if the person was okay, all right, man. Now there was also a good list. So if you put somebody in something like that, and they're like, okay, man, all right, yeah. I mean, they didn't really have a choice, but if they didn't try to weasel a way out of it, it's like, okay, I'm gonna remember that and take care of you down the road. So anyway, this guy makes this announcement. Nobody shows up, and I'm like, man, you gotta use some trickery. So he picks up the intercom again. He goes, attention to the squadron. We just had an add-on maintenance trainer, which they were good. Normally they were good deals because the plane there, and we didn't have to stay with the plane. We just left it. There was nothing to do. They would practice working on it, and it was an easy day, and then you could enjoy wherever. So if it was in a really good place, it was a really good deal. So we were like, he goes, we have a maintenance trainer to Utapao, Thailand. And it was during the time when the urine test monitor was. Anybody interested to stop by? People lined up around the corner. Hey, yeah, hey, oh, hey, no, sorry, that just canceled. Let me get your name. Okay, guys, I got something else for you. Anyway, that's pretty mean. But again, you didn't want to be on the list. Well, I remember one time, like I said, a lot of power as a scheduler, and I remember one time we had a deal come up. Somebody was going to have to go on a trip. I forget what it was for or what. And it wasn't necessarily a bad deal, but I mean, there was a point where we were getting pulled, 6 ways from Sunday in all kind of different directions, and you run out of people, and there's literally nobody else, and that was always the joke. I mean, there's nobody else, and we did all the moving around we could. Well, there was this one thing that came up, and the guy, I remember now, the guy was going to have to fly commercial out to wherever and pick up this trip and whatever. So it was a little bit of a hassle, but so I called the guy up. I'm like, hey, come see us, and hey, we need you to go do this trip and fly commercial and all that. And he had something else going on. He was doing it was like a Make-A-Wish thing or something he was doing for some kids. I mean, a noble thing and all that, and I get it and I appreciate it. But I mean, you're a pilot, you're paid to fly, and we needed you for this trip. And dude, we looked every way we could. There's literally nobody else. If you can find somebody else to take it, we could swap you out or whatever. No, and he couldn't get it. We gave him a couple hours to work it, came back, nobody wants to do it, nobody can do it. I'm like, sorry, dude, you got to do it. And so he's, exasperated. He goes talk with the ops officer and everything, and they're like, they tell us that nobody else. So anyway, so he's upset that he's gonna miss this thing that he was doing, which I mean, I understand and I get it, but I mean, that's the job. And so he comes in and he's all exasperated. He goes, okay, well, what flight am I on? And I'm like, look, I just put you on the trip. I mean, you have to coordinate that. You have to coordinate your own air travel. Called Sato, the travel agent that we used, that was contracted out to travel. You call him up, say, hey, I need a ticket to whatever, and you coordinate that. He goes, you're not going to do that. I mean, you put me on this. You kind of screwed me over with this, out of my additional thing that I was doing. You're not going to do that. I'm like, that's nobody. Schedulers don't do that. That's your job. That you coordinate that. You're a captain in the U.S. Air Force. I mean, come on, man. And he looks me right in the eye and he goes, Ritter, he goes, you're such a loser. And he turned around on his heels, walks out. And I kind of looked over at my buddy that was sitting over there scheduling too, and he kind of looked at me and he's like going, what in the world? I mean, he was mad, and then he just calls me out like that. I mean, trying to humiliate me in front of, everybody around or whatever. And I was like, so it was, and guys had done this. It was within my power to make his life, a living hell from that point on. And it was a scheduler. I mean, I could have, he would have been your test monitor forever, whatever. But I didn't. He never apologized, never came back, said, hey, sorry for blowing my top. I was just upset. Never again. In fact, I don't know that I ever had 2 words to him after that point. He made a point to never talk to me or anything else. And I'd never talked to him, and I didn't think a whole lot of him. But I remember that story as I was reading. I'm in 1 Samuel 25. So David was on the run from Saul, and he's in the mountains there in the wherever he was in Israel, hiding out, trying to keep away from Saul, who was chasing after him. So while they're out there, he's got 600 men with him, or I think that's the number, and they had and they were in this particular area, and there was a farmer there, a rancher, a rich man, as the Bible says his name is Nabal, which is another word for fool, I guess. But I'm not sure what kind of parent would name their kid fool like that. But anyway, so he was this guy, and so he's there. He is, and David and his men are basically around him, and they're basically a shield. So nobody messes with David's men are there, and they don't let any tomfoolery happen. So there's no bandits, no people coming to take the guy's sheep. David's men don't bother the shepherds. I imagine they were kind of like friendly. Hey, how you doing? Never had a problem. So there's some second order effects when David's around. Because nobody's bothering him. And so Nabal's enjoying the fruits of this, right? He's hey, I'm not losing any sheep. No, nobody's stealing anything. Nobody's bothering my shepherds or anything else. So it was shearing time, and now Nabal's reaping the benefits of that protection. And David's like, well, it's feast time, so hey, just go ask this guy if we can have a little bit. I mean, if he could share some of his prosperity with us, because we're up here eating beans or whatever they were eating up there in the mountains. They go down there, and Nabal insults him. Basically, it's like, who's David? I don't know. I can't just be giving stuff to anybody that shows up at my door. Get out of here. So they, all right, and they turn around, and David is mad. I mean, Nabal's insulted him, and he's furious. He's like, this guy, we haven't touched a thing. And even though it was in our hand, it was in our power, and we didn't mess with him. So you know what? I'm going to kill them all. I'm going to kill all the men. And so he grabs 400 of his guys, and they head off to Nabal's farm. And a servant came to Abigail, who's Nabal's wife, says, hey, your husband, he's a piece of work. This is what he's done. David and his men, I mean, they were a blessing to us, and your husband doesn't realize that. Excuse me. So Abigail packs up a bunch of goodies, says, oh man, and she says, let me see if I can diffuse this, as wives often do. So she heads off, and she meets David and talks to him and says, hey, look, don't do what you're about to do. My husband is a fool. This is my fault. I should have stopped this. I just, don't do this. And because David planned to avenge his slight on Nabal and kill all the men in the family. And in verse 30, this is really the crux of Abigail's argument. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord has done for my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you ruler over Israel, that this will be no grief to you, nor offense of heart to my Lord, either that you have shed blood without cause, or that my Lord has avenged himself. But when the Lord has dealt well with my Lord, then remember your maidservant. So basically she's saying, when God brings you into your kingdom and makes you king, you're not going to look back on this day and go, I shed blood without cause. I killed this guy because he what? Because he offended me? I mean, that's not a reason. And the other is that you avenged yourself. And Leviticus 19:18 is pretty clear. God said, the children of Israel, thou shalt not avenge, nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am the Lord. You weren't supposed to avenge, and I think about that a lot, when you're out and something like that, like the guy, when I was a scheduler, the guy that, called me name and, slighted me in front of everybody. We do feel that sometimes, like we need to avenge, that this slight, this offense that somebody's put against us that we feel the need to get justice for that, that we need to, that's not fair, that I need to balance the scales of justice and act out. And I think that, like the words of Abigail here, afterwards, you'll look back and go, I shouldn't have done that, and you'll regret it. That's not our place to avenge. That's God's job to avenge. And you just don't know. If the Lord's working in this other person's life, if your kindness, and the fact that you chose not to avenge, would be on their heart and do something and turn their heart. So you just don't know. And it's just something I'd have to remember and try, and that's just not our place to avenge. So anyway, a little longer one today. I've got the little timer going. I'm looking up at the thing there. So I hope everybody's doing great. I hope you have a great week. I've been really busy, a lot going on. I haven't posted a whole lot of cooking videos. I'll probably do another one this week here. I'm running out of spaghetti that I made the other day. I'm going to make myself some lunch. But I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Take care.